What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Key West Waterman. My name is Aaron Young. Today we're going to make another entry in the Spearfishing for Beginners playlist, and we're going to go over tying your own bands. But before we do, I want to go over the band material itself. You can obviously buy pre-made bands, but this video is about tying your own, so you're going to want to buy band material. I'll put plenty of links in the description where you can locate some band material. I personally buy it in 50-foot boxes. I go through so many bands. I do so much spearfishing every year. And I have probably like 12 spear guns, so we go through a lot of bands. But we'll talk about the bands just for a second before we get to tying them. The most common band, and this is the only band that I use, is a 5/8 band, regular ID, which is ID is inside diameter. The three most common band sizes are 9/16, 5/8, and 3/4. The most common I personally think is 5/8. If you want to scale down a little bit, have a little bit easier load, you can go down to 9/16. I very rarely see anyone use a 3/4 inch band. Nowadays they do offer bands in different ID sizes. The ID is the inside diameter. You can see the hole there in the middle. If it is a small ID band, it's going to be a thicker band and harder to load, so just keep that in mind. But just for your reference, 5/8 standard ID is the most common band that I use. It's actually the only band that I use. I don't carry anything else. But let's get to it. We're going to tie some bands. All right, let's tie some bands. Before we dive in, I'm going to do my best to cover everything. If you watch the entire video and you still have a question, I would be happy to answer it. Just leave it in the comments. Like I said, I'm going to do my best to cover everything, so at the end of this video you will be able to tie your own bands that you are confident in. So there are two types of bands. Removable bands, which is this. I can tie it on and off of the gun. And permanent bands. There are different types of bands that have metal wishbones. For the purpose of this video, we're going to be covering Dyneema or Spectra wishbones. I don't use a lot of metal wishbones, but you can use the same principles with the knots. If you do have metal wishbones, it's kind of the same concepts. Now, if you have a spear gun and you're wondering, do I need a removable band or a permanent band? Best thing to do is look at the muzzle of your gun. You can see this gun has a slot right here. And that allows me to tie the band off, completely tie the band off of the gun and slide it into the gun. Now, if your gun does not have that slot, you're either going to have to tie them on the gun, tie one side, put it through, tie the other side, or you're going to have to use one of these removable bands. So that is the best way to tell, do I need permanent or removable bands? And just so you know, this other side of this one's not tied, because I'm going to show you guys that here in a bit. This side right here is not tied. So we will start with making a removable band. So I'm just going to make a little short one just for the purpose of the video. But basic principles. This is my band tying kit. I think some places will sell these now. I just made my own. All of the stuff other than like lighters and snips, I'll put links to. The purpose-built stuff, like this is constrictor cord. This cord, once you tie a knot past itself, it does not pull back the other way. This is constrictor cord. I've got wishbone beads. This is Spectra, Dyneema, tape measure. I'm not going to put a link for that. This is called a wishbone tool. This is a very useful tool for tying your own bands. I'll have links for stuff like that in here. But this is my band tying kit. I've got snips, a little pair of pliers, utility pliers, a knife, lighter, some tap cons. This is actually for pulling the bands tight. But that is essentially my kit. Tape measure for measuring bands and wishbones and whatnot. So this is my kit that I use. Like I said, I'll put links for whatever you need to pick up on that side. So we'll start with a removable band. And before we get too in-depth, well, we already are pretty in-depth, but just because I'm doing it this way doesn't mean this is the absolute right way. I challenge everyone in my videos to find a better way, teach me something. This is just the way I do it, so this is the way that I'm going to share. So on a removable band, I'll show you the other one we were just looking at. You're going to have one side with just a loop and one side so with a string. So we're going to start all the way at the bottom and show you how to make the loop, make this side, show you how to tie these knots. So this is about the length that I want. I'm using Dyneema. This is for my wishbones, I use 1.9 millimeter Dyneema. If you don't know what Dyneema is, it's a very, very high strength synthetic fiber. Just Google it. So we're going to make the one side. I want it, and this is ballpark, about 7 inches or so, 6 to 7 inches. I'm going to fold that in half. I like these wishbone beads. I'll put a link for these. These are on neptonics.com. A lot of people use little plastic hair beads. Some people just tie a big knot in the Dyneema. If you get it to work that way, that's fine. I've used this. I've never had a band slip with these on there. So that is what I like to use. So fold that in half. I'm just going to do a knot on the end. So like I said, that was right around 7 inches. And I'm going to pull it as tight as I can to the end of this. That's good right there. Always burn the ends. See, it kind of like flattens out a little bit. And if you gotta do, take your lighter and smash it a little bit. There's one end. So I'm gonna fold this. You may have to bite it with your teeth just to fold it completely. Just pinch it down a little bit. I want to go in the top end, or the thicker end. And just twist a little bit. And it will, if you have to, get a set of pliers and just grab it. It will pull through. So get that in there, pull that snug. That knot, the more you pull on the band, that knot will snug into that little slot in the bead. All right, so that is one side. Now this side doesn't have to be an exact length, especially if you're not sure how long your bands need to be. You don't know how much stretch you need in them. But you can start with something around, I'd say something around probably 8 inches would be safe. So I'll put it on there. This one I'm going to do a double knot. Just went around it twice. So in, around again. Now if this knot slips through the bead, you're probably not using 1.9 millimeter Dyneema. If it's a thinner Dyneema, that knot may be small enough to slide through. But if you're using the same, I'll put a link for the Dyneema. If you're using the same Dyneema, it should not slide through. If it does slide through, you can just make the knot bigger, do an extra loop or something. But this is how I do it, and this is what's always worked for me. So it slides right there. Perfect. So I've got both sides of my wishbones. This is for a removable band. I'm going to take my wishbone tool. Essentially, it's got a slot right here with a little groove where I can slide the line in. Go like that. You see it sits down just like that. If I can, I wrap it or hang onto the other end just so it stays in there. Put a little spit on it. Vaseline, some type of lube. The biggest thing is I try to keep, it doesn't hold on very well, but just try to keep your hand on it. Try to keep that line tight. Get it started. It takes a little bit of force to get it in there, but you want to go a little more than half an inch at least, because you need your knot to be on the, you need the wishbone bead to be outside of where you're going to tie your knot. And I'm going to tie my knot somewhere around here. So that is in. Pull it right out. And other side. Now this one I just hold with my finger because I got that loop. Put a little, trim that up. May actually use this for do a cheater band. I'll make a separate cheater band video, which is a load assist or a cheater band. I'll show you how to do those, but that's what I use this for. So same thing. Just be careful. Make sure it's locked in there nice. You do not want to drive this into your hand. Wear a glove maybe or a towel. I've done it so many times. Knock on wood. I'm still undefeated. Never drove one into my hand yet. All right, so there we are. You can see there's a bulge a little ways down, maybe half an inch, 3/4 of an inch down on both sides, because my knot is going to go above that wishbone bead. All right, so this is constrictor cord. I'll put a link up there for this as well. This essentially, when you tie a knot past it and pull, once it's cinched down and tight, it will not pull the other way unless you cut it or force it. But this is constrictor knot. So me, I don't measure these out. I'll measure it for your sake. I've done it so many times. I go like this. I hold it in my fingers and bring it to my elbow. I know that's how long I need. A little overkill. That is 16.5 inches, so somewhere around there. So This knot is controversial. Let me cut my second one while I'm telling you this. Not controversial. Everyone does it a different way. This is how I learned, so this is how I do it. I think it's called a double constrictor. I only know how to tie it in my hand and then put it on the band. I don't know how to tie it on the band. I'm sure there's a video for that. Again, this is how I do it, so this is how I'm going to show you. So I take my string, just make a loop, just like that. I'm going to show you this way because this is how I look at it. I'm behind the camera, so I'm looking at this first person. So just like that, and I grab the bottom, my hand facing this way, palms facing towards me. Grab the bottom, come over once, and just kind of straighten it up a little bit. Come over once to that finger, and then that makes another loop, so I keep that pinched here. Straighten it up just a little bit, and then I come over twice. So I'm going down below. Hopefully that makes sense. And then I just kind of clean that up a little bit. Make it look a little pretty. Again, there's probably a better way to do that, but that is how I've always done it. So that's how I'm going to do it. Now, take my wishbone, I slide the knot over the band, and slowly kind of wiggle this tight. But look at it. Make sure it's uniform. So there's 3 on the bottom. And then there's a knot on the top with another knot on top of it. So you just want to move them around just a little bit to make sure everything looks relatively uniform. Tipsy's in here with me if you hear some weird sounds. So hopefully that's in focus. Something like that. I'll take my Tapcons. I'm not going to put a link for these. Tapcons, nails, and then I'm just going to do 1 knot, 2 knots, and that's so when I pull this, like I said, this is constrictor cord, it won't slide past itself, but I found that 2 knots works a little better. And 9 times out of 10 when I pull this, it's going to pull tight, uniform. Maybe we'll have an exception today. So look at it, looks good, everybody's pretty. 3 on the back in a row, 2 on the front. Grab it and pull, and that was perfect. So you can see, cinch down nice and tight. On occasion, if this, before you pull, it's a little lumpy or the one is like misplaced or laying not flat, you'll have like a little half loop out here. For the most part, it's okay, but normally I redo them just to be safe because the last thing you want is for your band to fail out on the water. I just trim those up. A little burn. This stuff, you burn it, and then I take the lighter and lay it flat, and it'll make a little flat tip there, just a safety, so it never pulls through. All right, so I'm going to do this second one real time. If you want to skip forward, I'll make chapters on this, and I'll show you. If you want to skip forward to this one, I'll show you this one, but I'm going to do this one real time. Over once, over twice. Slide it over. And you want to get it fairly close to the edge, but not so close that when you pull it tight, it's going to fall off the side. See, that one's got a little bit of, let's readjust it just a hair. Okay, so see how this one is coming across and then coming across here? I don't know if you can see it, hopefully. I'm going to slide that one into the middle position so it lays more uniform. That looks better to me. I do like a half cinch just to get it tight. And another tip, I probably should have mentioned this at the beginning of the video. If you have old shooting line, I use Dyneema on my shooting line instead of mono. When it gets damaged or kinked, I just cut it off the gun, cut the kinks out, and I use this for my wishbone. So I just recycle that Dyneema. Just 2 knots on each of those. Grab tight and pull it. You'll feel it like cinch twice and then settle. And once it's, you don't want to cut that band in half, but you do want it tight. Same thing, burn both ends. All right, and then if you leave a little extra tag here, you can put it on the gun, try it. If it's too long, you can shorten it. You can always shorten it. You can't lengthen it. So I'll just ballpark this. Like I said, I'm going to use this as a cheater band for a video. Just do a little single knot. Cut it. All right, now my band is done. So once you have your gun, just for demonstration purposes, so if you have a gun that doesn't have this slot, you would slide it through, put it into place, and then you would do this knot. I'm going to show you. Hopefully this makes sense. So come through once, go behind, and then it creates a little loop right here. Behind, and then through that loop. Just like that. So the tighter I pull this side, the tighter it cinches on this side. And that is your removable band on your gun. Now obviously this one is removable because of the slot, but and once you get it tied like that, grab it and just pull. You'll feel the wishbone beads like settle. They'll come up against those knots with the constrictor cord. So there's my removable band. If you need to remove it, you grab that little tab right there. It's on my thumb. Pull it out. And it'll get harder after you load it on the gun, but you can still pull it out. Just like that. Again, in, behind. Creates a loop through the loop. Just like that. Bada boom. Okay, so now this one's different because of the way that I tie my knot. And again, there may be a different, better way to do this. You get me a piece of constrictor cord. So in the office editing, I realized I didn't show tying the wishbone for the permanent band. Pretty straightforward, but I did want to show it just in case. Wishbone length, I like mine to be somewhere around 5 or 6 inches, but if you have a gun currently that has bands tied on them, you can just cut the old band off and measure the wishbone, or measure just inside the band, and you can get a decent idea. But I like mine around 5 or 6 inches, so I'm going to start with a piece of Dyneema that's around 9 inches. And very straightforward, you just do that double knot over. And I would burn that end. Now I'm going to put my bead on this side. Oh, I did that wrong. Go through the big end. It's the opposite for the next one. Go through the big end, that slot pulls in there. Now I'm going to put this one on through the small end. With the big ends facing out, because that's what it's going to be holding in the band. And then same thing, just a quick double knot. And that is your wishbone for your permanent band. You can see I started with about 9 inches of Dyneema. Now it's down to about 6 with the knots. Just burn the ends and that's your wishbone. Now, because of the way that I tie my knot before I put it on the band, you have to tie it before you put the line in. So I do it like this. Do my 2 overhand knot. I showed you that earlier. If you missed it, go back. Get that kind of set about where I want it. Get even tags on each side. I'll pull this one out. Oop, sorry, hit the camera there. I put it on the band first. Get it loosely set about where I want it, not exactly. Again, check everything. 3 in a row, looks good. On top looks good. And now that that knot's on there, I'll put this back in. Hopefully you can see that. And again, I want that bulge behind or past the knot. Slide that up just a smidge. And doing this way, I have never had a band slip. I used the wishbones, the 1.9 millimeter Dyneema. You can use Spectra as your wishbones. The Dyneema is just a little more abrasive resistant in my findings. Normally I can reuse them. But again, this is not the only way to do it, just my way to do it. And I have been happy with it. That looks perfect. So now, like I said, this would be a permanent band. And you tie these for a gun that has the slots. You can order bands online pre-made. Just make sure it's one or the other. If your gun doesn't have the slot, make sure that you order removables. If your gun does have the slot, you can order pre-tied permanent ones. But just because one or the other, like you could put removable ones on this gun, it doesn't matter. You see I slide it right in there. Pull it around, and there is my band. But that is all I have for this one. Again, if you watched the entire video and I missed something that you'd like to have answered, leave a comment. I'll do my best to get to it. I will have links for the major stuff, wishbone beads, Dyneema, the insertion tool. If you are new to spearfishing, check out the rest of this playlist. It's a playlist I made just for beginners getting into spearfishing. And if you're new to the channel, check out some of the other videos. We have a good time living in and on the water. That is all I have. I will see you guys on the next one. Later.